Hi, my name's Russell Stannard. I'm the founder of teachertrainingvideos.com. National Geographic Learning have asked me to look at their platforms, and in this video we're going to look at MyELT. Now, many of us at the moment are teaching online, and these platforms can play a really major part in both organizing our online learning, but also saving us a lot of time in terms of preparation, finding the right materials, and supporting what we're doing in a live session, perhaps using Zoom or using Microsoft Teams, etc. I've been working on the delivery of online courses for about 20 years now, and one big difference between online and face-to-face is that in an online course we are almost expecting our students to play a slightly different role. Often in an online course we have the homework, and then we have a live session using Zoom or Adobe Connect, Microsoft Teams. And what we really want to do is make sure that we get the most out of those live sessions. Now, to do that, we actually need the students to do a little bit of homework. So often we kind of treat it like a flipped classroom. We get the students to do some homework, some preparatory work, so that when they come into the live session, they've already got something to work from. And that normally means that we can get them straight into breakout rooms, get them communicating and working together. So it's almost like the idea that the basics, the lower order thinking skills, the preparatory work is done by the students at home, so that you can make the most out of the Zoom sessions and make them more discussion based, more task based, and more group orientated. So this relationship between what the students do for homework and what they do in the classroom is really, really important. And of course the platform can facilitate that, because we can tell our students to watch a video or listen to an audio or read an article or maybe do some grammar exercises in preparation for the live session that you're going to do, perhaps using Zoom or Adobe Connect. And it means that those live sessions can be a lot more active. And that's why the platform is key to the effective delivery of online teaching and learning. So let's have a look at the platform. Let's have a quick look at some of the things that the platform can do. And let's start to think about this idea of linking what the students do at home to what they might do in a live session. Okay, so we're now looking at MyELT, and this is Pathways Listening Speaking. The content is organized into units, as you can see here, and if we click on any of these units, so let's go to unit 1, you'll see that the content is actually organized with a lesson A, video, lesson B, and then a review. Now if we click back and went to another unit, you'll see that actually that content is organized in exactly the same way. Now this is really important because it helps students to quickly learn to navigate through the platform and find the content very easily. And obviously if we're setting content for the students to do for homework, it's absolutely vital that they know where to find that content. So let me focus on an example of what I mean. And really what I'm trying to do is to get the students to do some work at home in preparation for the next lesson, so that the next lesson can be about sharing what they've studied at home. And I'm going to take an example from Unit 9. I'm going to click on Unit 9 and just quickly show you. If we click over here on the video section, we're just going to click on Watch. There's an absolutely fabulous video here about chameleons. So let's just have a quick look at the video just to see the quality of the video itself.
With their independently rotating eyes, color change abilities, their pincer-like feet, their long tongue that they project out of their mouth, and their...
So you can see that's a great video, and what I do to set the context for watching that video is that I probably get the students to open up their course books, focus on this picture in their course books and say to them, okay, here's a picture of a chameleon, what do you already know about chameleons? And collect their ideas together. Now for homework, I'm going to ask the students to do two things. I'm going to ask them to watch the video and answer these questions, and then I'm going to ask them to write down 3 things that they've learnt about chameleons that they didn't know before. So that's the homework. Now I'm thinking of that because when I bring them back into the lesson, the live lesson the following day or whenever the next lesson is, I could immediately see, right, okay, you did your homework, you watched the video, I'm going to put you into groups now of 3 or 4 and I want you to discuss all of the things that you've learned about chameleons and I want you to make a list for me. So the great thing about that activity is that it means that they move straight into a group work activity, perhaps in Zoom, because that's got breakout rooms, and it means that immediately they're discussing and sharing ideas based on what they learn at home. Now, one of the features I really like on MyELT is the ability to actually assign the homework specifically to a group of students, and then MyELT will track whether the students did or didn't do the homework, and also it will even give their score. And it's very easy to do this. I'm just going to click on assignments here at the top of the screen. I'm going to click on assign activities. Now in this case, of course, it would be that video, which is in unit 9 of pathway. So I would click here and just simply open up until I get down to the unit. I'd click on unit 9 and just come down to the contents of unit 9. And the piece of work that I want to assign is here. So the video. So I'm just going to click on that. And then I click on continue. Now it brings us over to another screen where we can specify a few things. A couple of interesting things are, first of all, we can decide how many times the students can play the video or the audio, etc. Now in this case, I'm not really worried how many times they watch or listen to the video, so I'm just going to set it up to a maximum of 5 times. Here I can set specifically when the activity is going to be available and when I want the activity to be completed by, and I can add that information in as well so that the students have got a particular due date when they need to actually do that particular activity. Now if we click back onto the gradebook, we can actually see the activities that have been assigned to this group of students, and we can actually see whether or not they've done the activity and what mark they got. And that's so useful in terms of checking the students' understanding where perhaps you need to do some revision work, but it's also great in terms of this ability to set a piece of homework and make sure that the students have actually completed it. Now of course the great thing about using a platform is the content is there. And so it really is just a matter of you deciding what you want the students to do for homework, possibly contextualizing the homework so the students are dead clear what they're expected to do. And then of course think about how you're going to link that back into the next class. So I always say to teachers when I'm talking about delivering online that you really do need to think about both what you're planning on doing in class and what you're planning on doing outside of the class. You really do need to plan the lesson in that way, very globally, looking at those 2 parts of your lesson and how they're going to connect. Now of course you don't always have to use the platform in a way that means that you're kind of getting the students to prepare for the live session. Often you will have taught something and you simply want to do some consolidation work, and then you're going to ask the students to use the platform for that. So perhaps after a lesson, the homework that you set might be to simply get the students to do a grammar exercise. We've got an example here where they have to choose the correct sentence, and they've got a whole series of activities to go through. Now the important thing is as well is that all of this can be self-checked, so the students can actually do the exercise and then submit their answers. So I could work through this particular exercise choosing the answers, and then at the end of the exercise I would be able to submit my answers and see if I got the answers wrong or right. So you can see I've now completed this exercise and I can click on this button and submit my answers. And you're going to see it then gives me complete feedback on every answer and whether I got it wrong or right. And I can obviously work through and check my answers and review exactly what I did. So it's really a good idea to understand and to investigate all the types of content that's available in the platform that we can then use with the students, particularly for homework. Of course, you can use the platform in a live session, in a live class, absolutely no problem with that. Particularly strong for me personally are the listening sections. There really are some great interviews and great features, and what I like is that so much of the content is global and it's very much connected to the issues and interests that many people have got today. So there's great listening material that we can just click on.
Okay, today we're going to talk about the Sami people. As you may know,
so another great thing about the content is that often the students are learning not only English, but they're learning about culture, they're learning about geography, they're learning about issues of the day like artificial intelligence, etc. So listening material, grammar, reading, there's even opportunities for speaking practice, and it's really important that we exploit and make as much use of all this content, both in the live sessions but also, as I've said, for homework. Now what I'm going to do now is just take a slightly different slant on the use of the platform and suggest a few other ways that you could work with the platform that perhaps you hadn't thought about before. These days I don't really do a lot of teaching. I still study languages, but nowadays I tend to do teacher training. But when I was working with my students, I'd often really work on activities that they could try with the content that were just a little bit different and would kind of exploit the content in a different way. And I just want to make a couple of suggestions now, looking at MyELT, the sorts of things that you could possibly think about doing with your students. One of the most important things about language is the idea of working and reworking language that we've already had exposure to. The more we work and rework and use it, the more we're likely to acquire it. So an activity that I often do with students is I just take some content from the book, and let's just take this example here. We've got 10 sentences, and for homework what I might ask the students to do is to rewrite these 10 sentences but substitute one word so that the sentence still makes sense. So let me give you an example. For example, the first sentence here is passports are required for trips outside the country. So I might change that sentence to passports are required for trips outside the city. And let's take the second one. The government manages the gas supply in this city. And I'm going to change that to the government manages the water supply in this city. So I've just substituted one word for another, but I've still kept the sentence. Now I'm going to ask the students to do that for homework. Now what I might do in the class then is then say, right, you've done your sentences, hopefully you've got 10 sentences. I'm going to put you into groups. I want you to read your sentence, and I want the other students in your group to guess which of the words did you substitute. So for example, the student might read out the sentence, passports are required for trips outside the city. And then the students would say, city is the wrong word, it should be country. And then the student might read out the second sentence and say, the government manages the water supply in this city. And the rest of the group would say, no, it's not water supply, it's gas supply. Those types of activities I really like because the students are working with content that they've already been exposed to, perhaps because they've already done this in an exercise, and we're just using it in a slightly different way. Now another idea that we can use, and we'll carry on working with the same material. Let's imagine we're in a live session, so we're doing a lesson and the students have been exposed to these 10 sentences. Now what I would do is I would ask the students to look at the 10 sentences and choose any 3 they want and just write down the first word and the last word of the sentence. So let's imagine that I use sentence 7, sentence 10 and sentence 1. Okay, so I write passports, country, basketball, world, meet, countries. Now I close the window down, I put the students into breakout rooms, perhaps into groups of 4 or 5, and then I tell the students in turn to read out one of their sentences. So in other words, they read out the first word and the last word, and the rest of the group have to either orally try to remember the complete sentence, and they can help each other. So it's very much a kind of what we used to call a dictogloss, so they're rebuilding the sentence. Or if you want, you can actually work with the interactive whiteboard and the students can work together to rewrite the sentence. So let's imagine I'm in my group and it's my turn to say my sentence. I would say passport country, and then the students would try to remember that the sentence was passports are required for trips outside the country. And then the students say to me, okay, what was your second sentence? And then I would say basketball world. And again, the students would try to remember the sentence, which of course is basketball is played by millions of people around the world. I love these kind of activities because we're exposing and using language that we've already confronted in the lesson. And what I'm trying to do is look at alternative ways of actually working with the content. Now, I'm currently studying Polish, and I actually have a platform that I use with my teacher. And one of the features that I really like in the platform is the ability to review everything I've done. It tracks my scores, it tells me kind of everything about my performance. And in fact, MyELT does exactly the same thing. If we come up here and click on this button here, we can come down to Gradebook. We can click on Gradebook, and it will actually show me what activities I've completed. And I can click, I can even see the score, so it reminds me of how many I got correct. And I can even click here and review what I've done. So in this example here, I can see all my answers. I can see the only answer I got correct was this one. And I can even review my score. And this is interesting because I get the opportunity to look at the correct answer and compare that with the answer that I wrote or I chose. So I really like this idea, and what I try to do, or what I would try to do with my students, is encourage them to make use of this and to review any activities that they've done to see where they've made mistakes. And I think this can be really helpful, and it's kind of linked to the point I just made earlier about this whole idea of reworking and reactivating the content that we've already exposed our students to. Now, as a final point I want to make, and I just want to jump back here now to actually be logged in as the teacher again, and I showed you earlier that the teacher is able to set assignments for students to do, and then all of those assignments are tracked, and we can see exactly what the students have completed and what they haven't completed. I just want to take you a little bit further with that, and if we just come over to the Gradebook and just point out to you that in the Gradebook, and we can see clearly that we've got 3 students, we can see their average mark and their progress, and we can actually drill down. So if we took, for example, here David, Spain, and we clicked here, as the teacher we can actually see exactly what David answered in each question, and I could go through and drill down and look at David's homework and see exactly what he completed, what he got wrong and what he got right. And this ability to be able to track the students to this level can really help us. It can both help us on a global level to understand what we might need to revise or go over a second time, because perhaps we notice that the students are struggling with a particular question, but it also allows us to focus on individual students and to see exactly how they're progressing. So for me, the platform in the current state that we're in, lots of teaching online now, really is a massive help. And even one additional thing to keep in mind, if you jump over to the students button here, and we can see our 3 students, we've even got the ability to email the students. And obviously if we want to, for example, remind them that they haven't done the homework, or if there's been a change or some information that we want the students to be aware of, we can even send a direct email to the students, and that can really help us as well. Okay, I really hope that video was useful. We've looked at the platform, we've looked at different ways that we can use the platform, we've looked at the great features that it's got for checking on students' progress and giving students assignments to complete. And we've also looked at a few alternative ways of using the material and trying to encourage our students to be more autonomous. One thing I'd definitely say about the platforms is that they really can save you a lot of time, both in a blended learning context and obviously if we're teaching fully online. Thank you very much.